Tonight, check Jalen Rose and the Countdown Crew at 7 p.m. And then after that, Hawks Knicks. And then after that, Warriors Lakers. And are you in a fantasy basketball league yet, Jay?
It's just a fantasy.
If you're going to start your fantasy basketball league, do it soon and do it with the ESPN Fantasy Basketball app. Sign up now.
I played fantasy football for a decade, never played fantasy basketball.
Come on, get up. Tomorrow they'll be talking about what's next after the Ramsey trade, and they'll focus on Deshaun Watson's production. And of course, we'll be talking about the Cowboys. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen, you're not going to like this information I have for you. You're not going to like it. Remember those 2 illegal hands to the face calls from Trey Flowers?
Of course I remember.
You remember those, right? You remember Bakhtiari with the head back and kind of like flopping a little bit? Well, you're not going to like this information because Bakhtiari had this to say about those 2 calls. Previous to the calls, he says, quote, I went over to the ref. I said, hey, are we not calling hands to the face again? Because the past 3 plays, I've been staring at the sky. And he's like, he's not looking at my side, but at least I made him aware. Jalen Rose.
Yes, indeed.
I gave Bakhtiari the benefit of the doubt when I saw his head snapping back like that, thinking he's not flopping for calls. But based on this information, I think Bakhtiari flopped for those calls, lobbied for those calls, and that affected the way that they were called.
I tried to tell you this, and you argued me up and down. And by the way, Bakhtiari on the first one had his hands in Flowers' face. And those weren't the only calls. What about the late missed pass interference call?
Oh, you got slapped in the chest while he tried to jump?
Yeah, by Jones Jr. Like, they just flat out didn't call. There was multiple calls that were missed that gave the Green Bay opportunities to get a chip shot field goal to win the game.
You've never lobbied for calls with an official before, have you?
Sometimes.
You've never sort of emphasized some contact to get a call before. Have you done that?
Maybe once or twice.
So can you really hold it against Bakhtiari? He's doing everything that he can to win the game.
This is why in the NBA they do a better job of legislating block, charge, flop, and fining people for doing so. So he can come out and say this because he knows there's no discipline to come with it. Now the only problem as an offensive lineman, defensive lineman gonna be coming after him, and the ref's gonna be like, all right,
that's the thing.
You threw us under the bus.
I think he's best off just keeping his mouth quiet. I think he's kind of proud of himself for getting those 2 calls. He's best off keeping his mouth quiet, but I will never slander that man because of the way he chugs beer. He's one of the greatest beer chuggers on the planet. Big shout to David Bakhtiari and him throwing down pints like it's nothing. Next, some interesting news out of Tennessee. Remember they drafted their franchise quarterback, Marcus Mariota, was lead them to multiple Super Bowls and championships, and they got a new day in Tennessee. It's all going to be great. Well, guess what? Marcus Mariota, healthy, not starting in favor of former Dolphins quarterback Ryan Tannehill. Jalen, the quarterback is such an important position in football. Tannehill's on a 1-year deal. What does this mean of the future of the position in Tennessee?
It's not just him, and it's just not Tennessee. You can look in the same draft class at Jameis Winston. Because both of those teams are still trying to figure if these guys are starting quarterbacks, lower tier, consistent, middle of the pack quarterbacks with their potential, because I don't think either have the capabilities of being what we consider elite.
Well, the Tennessee Titans don't have the team around someone where a middle-of-the-pack quarterback can take them deep in the playoffs.
Facts. And so it's unfortunate for Mariota, but when you get shut out in today's NFL, where you can't touch the receivers and the game is, you got to
get to the red zone, dog.
Yeah.
They didn't get to the red zone.
Yeah,
they brought in Tannehill. They're like, he got to the red zone. I guess we'll start that guy. He got close
and
to the end
channel,
zone.
Huh?
Yeah. They didn't make the channel. They're just like, we just want to appear on the red zone channel on offense. Exactly. All right? That's all we need. We don't even got to win or score. At least Tannehill will get us on the red zone channel. Great point. Well, you've got certain players in the NBA, we both do, kind of like our pet favorites. You know what I mean? And one of yours has had some ups and downs in his career, but he's back. Zach LaVine. You had your eye on Zach LaVine for a long time, not just because of the highlight dunks, because of his game.
He can ball.
And he's got a well-rounded game. Well, he's in the news because of the way that the Bulls and their analytics department wanted him to adjust his style.
No.
Here is what he said. He said the following, quote,
No.
I know, ain't this crazy? I mean, I grew up being a Michael Jordan Kobe fan. I know that some of the greatest scorers in NBA history were mid-range, mid-post guys. It's sad to see it be pushed to the side. I think it takes away a little bit of the skillfulness and it takes away some of the weaponry. But I'll tell you this, there's still guys in the NBA, and I think I'm one of them, that can still get it done. Jalen Rose. I watched a lot of Jalen Rose basketball in my day. You could hit threes. You could finish around the hoop. But I'd say like 75% of your buckets came from the mid-range.
No doubt.
What do you think of the analytics department asking Zach LaVine to adjust his game?
Just let me cook on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Analytics destroy baseball. Analytics is destroying basketball to the point where the three-point line will get moved back and the quarter three is going to get eliminated. For everybody that has not played the game, I want you to understand something. I said the Toronto Raptors were going to win the championship for a couple of reasons. One, I knew Kevin Durant was injured. Two, Kawhi Leonard, their best player, plays in all phases. Mm-hmm. And why does that matter? A few years ago when the Houston Rockets were playing against the San Antonio Spurs, I remember saying all the Spurs have to do is suffocate the three-point line,
protect the rim,
have Tim Duncan rim protect because they're not playing mid-range. So the numbers say one thing, but guess what? You're going against the best players in the world. And if I know where you're going to be, the percentage of your play is going to be lessened because I'm going to be there to contest it. You got to use the entire floor. And if I'm up on you at the three, you got to also play in rhythm, okay? So if you pump faking at the three line and you take one or two dribbles and that 18-footer's there, you got to knock it down.
Well, there's this too. Like, let's just take a look at some of Zach LaVine's numbers when it, talks about his abilities in the mid-range. This is shooting by location. In the paint, you see shoots over 50%. That's good. Mid-range shoots less. That looks like less than 40%, or right around 40%. And three-pointer, again, pretty efficient, over around 40%. So you can see by those numbers why the numbers alone would tell you to adjust your game, but the numbers alone shouldn't dictate your strategy on the basketball court. Because we talk about this. Regular season, you're not scouted that much. People show up. Playoff basketball, if I know your tendencies, if playoff basketball, if I'm playing you game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4, game 5, and you only score from 2 places on the court, it makes you easy to defend.
This is why Kevin Durant has elevated himself into arguably the most complete scorer in the history of the league. Mm-hmm. Because 40 plus from three, kill you from the elbows, kill you from the boxes, can still finish at the hoop, can make his free throws. That's what makes you a terrific offensive player, being well-rounded, not just shooting threes and layups. I know that's Houston's style of play, and James Harden has become unique at that aspect, but that's one player.
Just because James Harden can do it, and Steph Curry can do it too. He can finish. He's one of the best finishers, underrated finisher, and he shoots great threes. But just because these players can do it doesn't mean every player should do it. Look at Zach LaVine's build. Look at his build. He's going to be covered by shooting guards who are going to be smaller than him. Do you know what that sounds like? An opportunity to score in the mid-range. That's what it sounds like to me.
Put somebody on your hip, turn either way.
You know what I would challenge the Bulls coaching staff to do? Instead of saying, hey, this is what you've scored in the mid-range, it's inefficient, I would say, what can we as a coaching staff do? Raise his efficiency in the mid-range. What plays can we run? Where can we get him better opportunities so he becomes more efficient in the mid-range instead of trying to limit those number of mid-range shots?
Absolutely. And I talked about this, I think it was in the New York Times, how the idea of analytics, while it supports so many things within the game, it should be a tool, not the toolbox.
Yes.
In this case, they're doing it in reverse. And as a young player, now just think about what's going to happen now. He's going to be conscious of that while he's playing. Instead of being free and playing with the rhythm, when somebody could test him at the three, he's going to be like Melo was when he tried to play with Houston. And I told y'all that was going to be a disaster when he did the pump fake and he made it 2. He looked over at the bench and he was forced to apologize.
You want to know what my favorite part of this story is, Jalen? Of course, Kevin Durant got involved on Twitter. Kevin Durant got involved on Twitter, started going back and forth. You know how I feel about Kevin Durant on Twitter. I've gone 180. I used to be like, what is this guy doing? Why is he engaging with these people? And now I fully support Kevin Durant expressing himself on Twitter. I love Kevin Durant's Twitter fingers.
And as I think about great scorers in the history of the NBA, and as I talked about Melo not being in the league, why ain't Jamal Crawford in the NBA right now? Do you know he averaged 30 in April last year. He scored 50 in the game last year.
Last game, I forgot what happened.
He's the only player in the history of the league to score 50 for 4 teams.
Listen,
why is he not on the squad?
Because they're holding roster spots for your comeback. That's why, Jalen Rose. And when we come back, who'll be joining us?
DC's finest, Wale.
In the building right after this.